An older, cheap camera like this might not look like a serious street photography camera, but carrying a setup like this can actually teach you a lot about street photography, much more than going out and buying the latest and greatest gear. So in this video, I want to break down the lessons that using this camera gear can teach us by looking at it through the lenses of a few of the best street photographers working today. And if you want a list of my recommendations for everyday street photography cameras, stay till the end of this video. And a big thank you to Link for sponsoring this video. Have you ever gone for a walk without your camera? Most likely, yes. But then, while you're walking around, you spot something that would make a great street photo. So you reach for your camera, only to remember you've left it at home on the shelf. Now this happens to all of us, even great street photographers, such as Matt Stewart. In this great interview with Matt Stewart by Josh from the Framelines channel, Matt talks about one of his most famous images and how it came to be.
Well, I was extremely drunk the night before. I woke up and was so hungover that I needed to get some Alka-Seltzer. So I went to the chemist that was very near my house, and on the off chance I picked up my camera, stuck it in my pocket, but did not expect to see any pictures that day. It was raining. I got to the traffic lights and a convertible car with the roof down pulled up at the traffic lights, and what looked like a Great Dane was behind the steering wheel. I reached for my camera, took 2 or 3 frames, thought I was still drunk, went to the pharmacy, went home, and anyway, got the film developed, and lo and behold, there's this dog that looks like it's driving a convertible. And the picture was published in The Guardian. I had a portfolio in The Guardian I was very happy with. And I got a phone call from the owners of the dog. They actually asked if I could send them a print of the dog, because Joe, the dog, had died.
Oh no.
I sent them a print. The dog is always going to be alive in that picture.
The difference here between you and me and a very hungover Matt Stewart is that very hungover Matt still remembered to grab his camera when he was just popping out to the chemist. Whereas many times if we're just popping to the shop, we leave our camera at home, because why take something extra with us? But Matt's story here goes to show that if he didn't take his camera with him, he never would have captured this iconic image, and he never would have immortalized Joe, the Great Dane, for the owners. So there are so many good things that can come from taking your camera with you in case that perfect image peeks up its head for you to take the photo. Another problem I've often faced when photographing in foreign countries, like in Italy, is feeling nervous about interactions on the street, since Italian isn't my first language. And to immerse myself in the language while on the go, I've been making much better progress since I started using Link. What I like about Link is that I can learn Italian using content that I actually enjoy. I can import real Italian material, such as videos and podcasts. Link turns this content into interactive lessons, allowing me to read and listen in a way that feels much less intimidating. I can easily look up words and phrases and track my progress. Lately, I've been diving into videos and podcasts about photography, cameras, or Formula 1. Forza Ferrari. I found that understanding even a bit more of the language has made a big difference in how I experience a place, and in my confidence when photographing people, and being open to those small, genuine connections that you don't get otherwise. If you're interested in learning a new language, check out Link. I've shared a URL in the description of this video. Hang on, but Matt uses a full frame camera from Leica. Does that mean that a Micro Four Thirds mount camera from 10 plus years ago isn't going to be good enough? Well, there's one photographer that I want to introduce you to who brilliantly demonstrates how little the camera matters. Like these photos shot on an action camera, or these photos shot on a Sony Xperia smartphone. These images you're seeing right now are from one of my biggest inspirations, Thavpong Prathamwong. To me, Thavpong is one of the great examples of a photographer who can make a great image with any camera, whether it's a smartphone, an action camera, or a pro camera body. I bet if you gave him the old Barbie cam from the old Digital Rev cheap camera challenge, he would still create a work of art, no problem. While I couldn't find an example like behind the scenes clip of Thavpong working with a more basic camera, This particular clip I want to show you is from a talk he gave when he shows his process around creating one of his most iconic images, albeit with a full-frame Sony camera. But I think the process you see here could be applied to any camera, whether it's the action camera he shot with, a Sony smartphone, or a Micro Four Thirds camera.
I observed that fisherman area had both cat and seagull, which was unusual because cat usually chase bird, right? But here they are so close. I had the idea to capture a seagull with its wings spread behind a cat, make it look like the cat had wings. It was crazy and difficult idea. But once you have a vision, you want to make it happen, right? I spend 30 minutes to an hour each morning for 7 days to get this shot. And this is a POV on that day. When I wait, I try to composition and make sure speed fast enough and check depth of field. Wait and wait. It's that 7 days.
This image and Tav Pong's process shows that it's the vision and the dedication that make the difference. He went every day for half an hour to an hour for 7 days to be able to create this one photo. There's nothing about this specific image or his process that he used that was only possible with a full frame Sony camera. He shot with a deep depth of field, a fast shutter speed, in burst mode on a zoom lens. There's no f1.2 Leica Noctilux lenses to be found here. Now, to continue pulling on this thread of shooting with a deeper depth of field, I want to show you a photographer who talks us through the process of shooting this style of images. This photographer actually has his own amazing YouTube channel where he documents his process of shooting with an older Fujifilm camera. But I want to show you a specific clip from an interview with Eduardo Ortiz by fellow UK creator Tim Jamieson.
So for instance, now I'm lowering a lot my shutter speed to close the aperture to get more context in frame. If I could easily go for like 1,000 of a second and, or 500 of a second, and then by closing my aperture, but it means less context, less, So I'd rather use a slow shutter speed, try to keep steady, my hands steady because people are not moving fast. And then, close my aperture as much as possible because the place is dark. But always trying to keep, at least f5 and 6, f8 to get a lot of depth, depth of field. So I get a lot of context. Otherwise, I don't like to make things lost in the blurry. I don't use bokeh.
We see in this clip how Eduardo approaches a scene and how he judges the scene for what settings he needs to use on his relatively small sensor camera to get the images that he's going for. But here we can see he's prioritizing getting this depth of field and making trade-offs with his shutter speed to keep that effect. But now I want you to keep watching and see what he does next.
Tunisia. So I like the man that is in the background that's kind of alone, so everybody's like kind of sharing, well, except for this man. But he's like kind of in the corner, so I'm gonna try to find a way to frame him.
Not only does Eduardo not care about shooting with the latest and greatest gear, but even with the gear he has, he pushes himself to venture further into a scene and find images inside this small little local club that you and I may not ever get if we're too nervous to go in with our cameras. And here you can see how much the approach makes the difference rather than going out and getting the best camera. You can use something from 10 plus years ago, and as long as you make the effort to go in and find interesting stories, you will find them, no matter the camera you're shooting with. I hope you found these lessons valuable as a street photographer. Now, as promised, my list of recommendations for everyday carry cameras. Two cameras that I love for their small size while also having built-in EVFs are the Lumix GX80 and the Lumix LX100. These cameras might look a little bit similar from the back, but they do have some key differences. The GX80 is actually an interchangeable lens mount micro four thirds camera, whereas the LX100 uses a 4/3 sensor but actually has a fixed built-in zoom lens. Both cameras are very small and offer great image quality, but the GX80 is going to serve you much better as a video camera as well, whereas the LX100 is an all-in-one package that is actually more like the budget version of the Leica Deluxe series. I'll drop links in the description to the original videos I did on these cameras, as well as where you can pick them up from websites like MPB. Another two very small cameras from Lumix, although this time without built-in EVFs, are the Lumix GM1 and the Lumix GX1. The main difference here is that the Lumix GX1 actually does have an optional external EVF attachment, but besides that, they're both very similar value propositions in being super compact little micro four thirds mount bodies that you can take anywhere and mount the smallest or the largest micro four thirds mount lenses to them. And I actually shot with the GX1 around Copenhagen and the GM1 around Manchester when I borrowed it for a day from Emily of Micro Four Nerds. Again, I'll drop links to the full videos for these cameras down in the description below. If you fancy something a little bit bigger and somewhat vintage, I'm going to send you in the direction of the Olympus Pen F. While this isn't the cheapest of the bunch, I think it has a very fun, appealing, ergonomic use case. So far in my experience shooting with this camera, it's very quick, the images look great, and it's very nice to customize your in-camera picture profiles using the Creative Dial. And it has a certain vintage aesthetic that could even rival Fuji. And if you're interested in seeing the differences between shooting with these micro four thirds mount cameras and shooting with Fujifilm, I'm going to send you to this video next, which details everything you need to know about the benefits of shooting street photography on Fujifilm versus micro four thirds.